Today I finally gave in and tried out the Assassin's Cowl Arc Hunter melee build, and my god, it is strong. It has a more in-depth gameplay loop than most builds, just simply by having to constantly dodge and punch, as well as being able to run double special weapons. It just feels too strong to be in the game, to be honest. This build can offer insane damage, infinite dodges, infinite melee charges, high uptime on your grenade and your super, as well as being able to jolt everything. And on top of all of that, you're really tanky and you're healing an insane amount, whether that's through our exotic or through our armor mods. First, let's look at the exotic we're using for this build. It is of course none other than Assassin's Cowl. The perk for this exotic is Vanishing Execution. Powered melee final blows grant invisibility and restores a portion of health and shields. Finishers and final blows against more powerful targets increase the duration of invisibility and the amount of health and shields restored. So basically, get a melee kill, turn invisible, get a finisher, turn invisible, as well as heal a small amount of health and shields. As for your weapons in a build like this, you can run double special. I would highly recommend looking for the activity you're doing and seeing what kind of champions you're going against, if any, and having a weapon that can deal with that. With this build, you'll be jolting, and jolting can cause overload, so you don't need an overload weapon. So then you just need to make sure you're taking care of barrier and unstoppable. If you're doing an activity that doesn't have champions, you should probably be running double shotgun because you're going to be up close and personal the entire time. And if you do happen to have a shotgun with lead from gold, that's always a great perk because you should be getting a decent amount of heavy drops for running double special. Our main form of killing things is with our melee, so you don't really need it for ammo. You don't really need your weapons to have high ammo anyway. The lead from gold will just keep you stocked up, as well as running either 1-2 punch or maybe even trench barrel. Now let's get into the subclass. For our super, we're going to be using Gathering Storm. This is still one of the best supers in the game because you can throw it instantly, and while it's damaging things over time, you can also be damaging things with your melee or your weapons. This also causes enemies to be jolted, therefore you can use it on overloads as well. Moving on to our abilities, it is important that you are using Gambler's Dodge. Anytime you dodge near an enemy, it will fully recharge your melee ability, and that is very important for this build. The next thing that is super important is Combination Blow, a quick strike that temporarily increases your melee damage when defeating a target, stacking 3 times. Defeating targets with this ability also fully refills your class ability energy and restores a small amount of health. And yes, this stacks really well with Assassin's Cowl. For your grenade, it's completely up to you what you want to use. Could be situational. I like the pulse grenade, but if you are running against different types of champions and you have unstoppable, you can use the flashbang grenade because the blinding effect will stop them. For our aspects, we're using Lethal Current. After dodging, your next melee attack has increased lunge range, jolts the target, and creates a damaging aftershock. Damaging any jolted target with melee also blinds them. So this essentially makes your melee be able to jolt and then blind a target. So you can deal with overload and unstoppable with just this, as well as flow state. Defeating a jolted target makes you amplified. While you're amplified, your dodge recharges more quickly, you are more resilient while dodging, and your reload speed is greatly increased. For our fragments, we're starting with Spark of Resistance. While surrounded by combatants, you are more resistant to incoming damage. This is going to give us +10 strength, as well as just make us extremely tankier because we're constantly going to be in groups of adds doing dodging and punching. Spark of Recharge. While critically wounded, your melee and grenade energy recharges more quickly. This is just going to allow us to get our grenade and melee quicker anytime we become critically wounded. And while we're critically wounded, we'll become more tanky, and if we get off that melee and get a kill with it, it'll just instantly heal us. So it's kind of a win-win. Spark of Feedback. Taking melee damage briefly increases your outgoing melee damage. This gives us +10 resilience, and it's just going to buff our melee damage. For your last fragment, you can kind of go through and use whatever will fit for your build. I'm using Spark of Ions. Defeating a jolted target creates an ionic trace. You're going to constantly be defeating jolted targets, so you'll be getting a lot of ionic traces, which will refund your ability energy. Let's take a quick look at the artifact. For that second column, you definitely want Authorized Mods Arc, as well as Authorized Mods Melee. In that third column, you want Amped Up. Stay amplified longer while your Arc subclass is equipped, as well as Thunderous Retort. Grants bonus arc super damage if cast while critically wounded or while amplified. Lasts until the end of super activation. We're going to be amplified quite a bit, so whenever you cast your super while you're amplified, you're just going to get more damage. It's just a win-win. In that fourth column, we're using electric armor, gain damage resistance while amplified, and counter charge, gain a stack of armor charge when you stun a champion. This one only matters if you're running things with champions, obviously. In that final column, you want shock and awe. Arc final blows while you're amplified summons a burst of lightning that damage and jolts targets, as well as lightning strikes twice. After throwing an arc grenade, gain increased grenade recharge rate for a short time. Arc final blows extend the duration of this benefit. Now let's look at the armor mods. It's always important to note that you want high resilience just to stay tankier. In our helmet, we're using hands-on, gain bonus super energy on melee kills. Arc siphon, rapid arc weapon final blows create an orb of power. Dynamo reduces super cooldown when using your class ability near targets. These are going to allow you to get your super back really quickly because you're constantly dodging your targets and you're constantly killing things with your melee. In our arms, we're using focusing strike, grants class ability energy when causing damage with a melee attack. That's just in case you don't have your dodge up at the time, you can just get a few punches off and that will recharge your dodge. Heavy-handed, your powered melee final blows create orbs of power. Another way to get orbs of power to drop. Impact induction, causing damage with melee attack, reduces your grenade cooldown. This is going to keep our grenades on high uptime so you can use them more often. In your chest piece, you should be using melee damage resistance, reduces incoming damage from combatants that are point blank range. We're going to always constantly be trying to be at point blank range, so make sure you have this one slotted. And for the other mods in this, it's very situational. If you need concussive dampener or maybe even take reduced damage at long range or something, just fill this one out. I kind of go a little overkill on my legs because I'm using reciprocation and better already. We're already getting a lot of health back from our melees, but this is going to allow us to, whenever we pick up an orb of power, it's going to instantly start healing us and it's going to just give us a bump to our health right away, as well as arc weapon surge. Whenever we have an armor charge, we're going to do more damage with our arc weapons. For your class item, powerful attraction is amazing because you're constantly dodging, you're constantly creating orbs of power, so anytime you dodge, you're just going to collect those orbs of power from a distance and it's just going to instantly heal you from better already and reciprocation. I have no idea if I'm saying that right. Also, we have outreached, reduces melee cooldowns when using class ability, and Reaper, after using your class ability, your next weapon final blow will spawn an orb of power. I'm surprised it took this long for me to actually start using this build. It is super crazy and I'm definitely going to be using it for any solo content in the future, as well as it still works really well in group content. It's just if you have to fight over the ads, you don't want to be up close and personal if your teammates are killing all the ads instead of you, so just depends on your gameplay style. I would definitely highly recommend using this build. It works really well, especially for higher tier content. I hope you enjoyed this video and make sure to share it with a friend or subscribe. It'll help me out a lot, and don't forget to get outside and touch some grass.